The only other show I worked on that comes close is Gilmore Girls. Crisis requires Nathan to step up. It's a really sweet moment when Edie gets to see that. And when Lee comes in, and for a second he forgets that she's in there, the budding romance between Oliver and Allie. It's going to be a gift that keeps giving in a great way.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome David Grae, writer and executive producer on When Calls the Heart, to the podcast today. Hi, David. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm thrilled to be here.
First of all, I just want to say welcome to Hearties Nation. This is such an exciting community to be involved in. I'm sure that you've already experienced that after being, kind of in the thick of it for the last few months. So it's so good to have you here. And I'm excited to talk about episode 2 that just premiered. You wrote that episode, so I'm sure you're going to have a lot of great insight to share with the Hearties. So thank you.
I hope the insight's great, but I'm looking forward to sharing whatever I can.
So I want to start with your invitation to join the When Calls the Heart writing team. What was that most exciting thing for you when you thought, okay, I'm going to be stepping into this world?
Yeah, it started with Joy Gregory, who, as you all know, is the incredible showrunner. And she and I had worked together more than 20 years ago on a show called Joan of Arcadia that was near and dear to our hearts. And again on another show for many years. So we've known each other a long time, worked together, have a lot of respect for each other's work. So just the chance to work with Joy, who is such a big talent and such a great person, and a friend, was enough. And then the show, I think, is so incredible, and it's something I've talked with Joy about, because it's about people of good character, but who face conflict and tumult in their lives, as we all do, and seeing how they deal with it. And in some ways, that's challenging to write. Sometimes it's easier to write, oh, it's the bad guy and the good guy, or someone, it has all sorts of horrible character flaws. But it's a little harder, and I think truer to the human experience, and certainly to the people I like to surround myself with, and I'm sure the viewers as well. Just good people could still get into conflicts, whether they're external conflicts or even with each other. And that is really seeing how adults, how people, and sometimes young adults on the show, or kids, how they deal with it and how they help each other, not only in family units, but as friends and as a community.
Yeah.
So I find that really exciting to write, and just as a writer, someone who's been doing this for decades, that's a real challenge, and I think that's where the real action is. Good people, but confronting real conflict in difficult situations.
Absolutely relatable. Even though we're talking about a 1920s show, it's like those things that happened then, they exist today. So very relatable for us.
Absolutely. Decency and goodness is something that, it's what humans have aspired to since the beginning. So through the ages, and 100 years ago or today, it looks the same.
Yeah. There's a very defined tone and history with When Calls the Heart. You have a rich history in writing series like this in different ways. So, what strengths did you feel like you would be able to bring to Hope Valley and that story, but still honoring what we've already had before us in these last 12 seasons, now 13?
Yeah, I think the show I wrote on that was the closest analog, in terms of my experience to When Calls the Heart, was Gilmore Girls. Obviously a different show, but what it shared with When Calls the Heart is a strong female character at the center of the show, and surrounded by a community of good people who took care of each other. And community was such a big theme of that show, and seeing how in times of trouble they all come together, but also have a sense of humor about it and about themselves. So I think that's it. You're saying what did
Yeah,
I bring to the table?
yeah, yeah.
And I've written on other shows with a bunch, and even in my own like work as a playwright, I'm often drawn to strong female characters and relationships. That's really, I think at the heart of good writing is relationships. I've also written on procedural shows like cop shows. And we have an element of that certainly in When Calls the Heart, and it's
Sure.
important with Nathan and Bill and their stories, and of course Oliver. But even in those shows and where that's evolved over I've run a show called Castle for many years, for 6 years on ABC, but character was such a big part of that show, and the central romantic relationship. So. I feel like I've been playing in this kind of playground for a while, and Hope Valley is, every show is different, and brought its own challenges. But I've really loved having the opportunity to jump in and really follow Joy's lead, and work with her. And I think I hope it's worked out well. I feel good about this season.
So I'm sure Joy prepped you. You guys, have known each other for years. She preps you as to kind of like what you're walking into. Was there something though when you got in the writer's room that really surprised you, or you're like, well, I didn't know this about When Calls a Heart or the Hearties?
It's the passion of the Hearties. Full disclosure, I wasn't familiar with the show before Joy brought me into it, and then I had a crash course. And there's a lot of TV out there,
Yeah.
especially when you're working and you're raising kids, you don't always, have the time to watch everything. But the passion of the fan base is amazing. It's the only other show I ever worked on, and every show has a passionate fan base. But the other show I worked on that comes close is Gilmore Girls. Like as I mentioned before, I mean, there's something about that show, about that mother-daughter relationship in that show, and the relationships in this show. It's really it's wonderful. It's great to know that people care so much. And the executives at Hallmark, and at MPCA, and Erin, the star of the show, who's also an executive producer, really made that clear from the beginning. It was so welcoming. I mean, it really is a warm atmosphere. I mean, it's true. It's true. The I didn't get to meet all the actors because I didn't have the opportunity to go up to Vancouver and to Langley. But I met a few of them, and Erin all along, was a really strong, not only, creative force and helping guide, and weighing in on, and the direction of the show, but just making sure we keep true to the themes and the heart of the show, which I feel like strongly like we did.
Yeah, yeah. It's so amazing when you've got, Aaron as a lead, when you've got some of the, even Ali Devereaux, who's, written a Bible about the show, right? That you've got that to fall back on and that they feel comfortable speaking up and saying, hey, this isn't quite it, but that's such a collaborative, open environment to be able to have those conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, Allie is, I mean, I know I know you all know, she's such a treasure to have on the writing staff because of her incredible
Yeah,
knowledge. I mean, deep
yeah,
knowledge of the show, which again, I think everybody knows that, but
yeah.
yeah.
So, episode two, let's dig into that. This very much felt like an episode that we might see later on in the season, more like a 9 or a 10 or 11. such a mammoth task to take on early in the season. So I'm wondering, what were the conversations like around pushing the community to its limits this early on in the season, but still delivering that element of hope that we saw in the episode?
Yeah, it was Joy's vision. She came in with wanting to do this fire, this disaster. And I part of the reason we just, um, let you in on our process to do it early in the season is to create that story engine for the season. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say the after effects of the fire
Yes.
are going to affect much of what happens throughout the season. So I guess that to answer your question just directly, that's why it happened early because we needed it as a story engine. And there's going to be more than you can imagine that comes out. It's going to be a gift that keeps giving in a great way. I hope, creatively throughout the season. Um, and and yeah, so it's big. It certainly was really big and a challenge for the production team that did incredibly well. I mean, to deliver that episode and all the fire effects and everyone had to pull together. I mean, the whole team.
Mhm.
Vicky, Mike, I don't know, the
Yeah.
whole
Oh, yeah.
production team, yeah, and the actors and it was big. So I mean, I'm grateful as a writer because when you sit down, clickety clack, and then production has to take it and oh boy,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so they delivered production, the cast everyone involved, and the network and the studio because they have to make it work
Yeah.
financially
Yeah.
too. So it was a big endeavor, and the director, Mike, everyone pulled together because in a situation like this, again, full disclosure, you have to decide what you can and can't do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so big, and anyway, I do hope the audience, I hope the viewers enjoyed it because it was a lot to pull off.
Do you remember as you guys, you're writing the episode, Joy's got a vision for how this is going to kind of set a story that's going to carry through the season. Do you remember as you're planning that thinking, okay, how are we, I mean, what were some of those conversations like with production as far as like, what are these big things that need to happen? Can this be executed? Do you remember any of those conversations?
Absolutely. In fact, Joy started going to Vicky. Maybe I was involved in some of it, but I know we were, and saying from like months before production, before we even wrote it. I mean, we're just in conception, can we do this?
Yeah.
Can we do a fire? And Vicky always said yes, yes, yes. And it was a challenge. And of course, Mike Magnuson comes into it, and everyone in production, and we had to work on just doing scenes that involve so many characters in so many scenes. It's not a problem. Like the show could do scenes, every couple episodes that involve a lot of characters. That's fine. But to do so many of them in one episode, in one block, we shoot to a couple episodes at a time. So in one and two, to do so many big scenes was a huge challenge for production, for the cast. It puts a strain on every department, on hair and makeup, on costumes, on just everything.
Yeah.
And to do just, I mean, scene after scene after scene of everyone pulling together. But then that's where the director comes in. That's where Mike Roll comes in and says, "Oh, I know how I could minimize the shot list, which makes it easier to shoot, and make it work. Or we could do this piece, maybe if this other thing you guys haven't, maybe we could do it a different way. It's literally the minds have to, and we had a lot of it. You always have what's called a tone meeting between the writer and the director to talk about the tone of each scene and how it might be achieved, and that's really for the writers to let the director know what we're thinking. But we had a lot more meetings than that, more meetings than on most episodes of on any show I've worked on, for one episode with the director, with production, with Vicky, with Mike Magnuson too, figuring out how we were going to get it done.
Mhm.
And with Studio Network, with Amy at the studio, and again, it was everyone pulling together and having to row together,
Mhm.
and the result is what we have on screen, which I,
Fantastic.
I
Yeah.
think holds together. Yeah.
So, aside from just, setting up a story that's going to carry throughout the season, were there any specific conversations about, like, in this episode, these are characters or these are things that we really want to make sure stand out throughout the episode?
Um, Sure. I mean, we really wanted to make sure, this is still the beginning of the season. And so obviously we're always looking at the relationship between Elizabeth and Nathan. We wanted to make sure we featured Lee and Rosemary, Lucas and Edie, like our couples, our main couples. But also, service, make sure we have a good story, get Bill in there. And of course, Allie and little Jack, and Joseph and Minnie and Mike and May. And it's amazing. Like they're all in there, you
Yeah.
know, Henry and Christopher, Faith, Ned and Florence, like, all the way that, like, we got everybody.
I
We
know.
wanted to launch everyone, and it is launching stories for pretty much all of those characters.
Yeah. Aside from the massive special effects, the stunts, all of I mean, this episode, in my opinion, and I've seen them all, really showcased the strengths that each character brings to When Calls the Heart. I mean, we saw, and I know like even Jack Wagner really highlighted this in Kansas City at the Hallmark Christmas experience when he was talking about Kevin's role as Nathan and how it really elevated the Mountie story in this episode. But then we see Faith and just like how she's really shining as the doctor in the community. Lee as the mayor. Was that, did you guys have those conversations like, okay, we really want to elevate these characters and let them shine in this moment? Or did it just, that collaboration and everybody stepping up together and we just get this glorious moment of seeing everybody really just elevated like we haven't seen, I don't think.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice to hear. Yeah, everything's by design. Everything and that's the pleasure of getting to work with other writers and work with Joy, and at writing at breaking a story, and writing a script, is that you get to go back, and rewrite and make
Mhm.
sure. And so just one example, like Lee and Rosemary. So Lee is the mayor. We wanted to see him jumping in and being there for the town and making sure. And his wife, and Rosemary is, the not only the journalist, but she's on the radio. And so her going and like, for instance, that scene, Joy and I, it was really important to us to kind of fight with ourselves, just time wise in the script. You connect, but we're going to keep that. We really want to get that scene in there where Rosemary is calmly assuring the neighbors, in Benson Hills, to letting them know what to do, and when Lee comes in, and for a second he forgets that she's in there, and then them connecting and him seeing his wife and her seeing him. That was just, we wanted to give those characters, give those actors, that moment. We thought it was an important for the audience to see they're
Mhm.
human beings, and
Mhm.
even though they're not ultimately going to be directly affected, they're now worrying about the people in the town next door, and they're in it together, this
Yeah.
amazing husband
Yeah.
wife team. I mean, that's just one example, and
Yeah.
seeing obviously Nathan, and Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, the mayor, Lee, knowing he can lean on Elizabeth, and she pulls together everyone to get ready for the guests coming, and then has a little surprise with Gwendolyn and having to figure out what to do with her. And of course showcasing Nathan, going and taking care of the town, then going off to take care of Benson Hills, then taking care of Gwen, then you going off to try to fight the fire with May and Mike, and Henry, and then coming back and reassuring Gwen. I mean, so all of our, and of course Lucas, looking after Edie when Edie's going after, and them emotionally looking after each other, and him is that we wanted to just make sure, and Bill, of course, in town, we wanted to make sure everyone was being their true self and their character and their relationship to the community as human beings, but also in the roles that they play in the community.
So let's talk about a few of those moments and those character choices. Nathan leads at a new level in this episode. He's always been a fantastic Mountie, but there was a new level of leadership in this episode. Where do you think that confidence comes from at this point in Nathan's journey?
Yeah, I mean, he is clearly so incredibly experienced. And also we're seeing him as a mentor to Oliver. So I think, that's a big piece for him. We're seeing Oliver step up, by the way, too. But also he knows things are getting really serious with Elizabeth. So he's taking care of Elizabeth. He's taking care of this town, his adopted town, which he came to, more recently, than a lot of these characters. And but he has to step up. He is the Mountie. This is a gigantic, it's big crises, and this is why, like, and again, Joy came in. This was Joy Gregory with this idea for the fire, but it gives, as in life, which I keep saying, crisis gives people, yes, it's scary, but it gives people the opportunity to shine.
Mhm.
And this crisis requires Nathan to step up to a certain level, which, of course, the Nathan we've known over several seasons is ready for this challenge and steps up to it.
You mentioned Oliver. Oliver's come a long way in one season. I watched this episode and thought back to last season where he's very clumsy standing at the turnip stand. And we really get to see him step into his role as a constable in this episode. So I'm just really curious about what you guys really wanted to do as far as pushing his character and his storyline forward in this episode.
Yeah, well, that scene where the big guy tries to take a
Yes.
whole carton,
So
a
good.
whole crate of beans instead of just one can,
Yeah.
as as Ned tells him he only gets one. That was really, that's a purely character scene. It's not a scene that has to be there for the plot or the story, but again, this was important to Joy and I, and the right, we really wanted to, and of course everyone, to see him get to step when Bill has his coughing fit because and this is something that I know is from, that he's had these issues in the past, and now it's come back with the fire,
Yeah.
and Oliver has to step up, and it's also part of the romance, the budding romance between, Oliver and Allie, and her getting to see, amazed, seeing him step up to, and again, in a crisis, it's all hands on deck. Nathan isn't there because he's over in Benson Hills helping keep the peace over there and fight the fire. So then Bill's in charge, but now Bill's down because of his lung issue, and Oliver has to step up. So we were really pleased with that scene turned out, and of course the directing and the acting, and
Yeah.
Clarence, big guy. I don't know if his name we got on screen, but that actor did a wonderful job too.
He did fantastic, and it was fun to see him in the jail with the newspaper and make the girlfriend comment and see Oliver's little smirk at the same time. So that was well played.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Lee tucks the Playhouse pamphlet. He starts to throw it away and he tucks it in his pocket. What's going on in Lee's mind when he tucks that pamphlet in his pocket?
Well, it's these artifacts of I mean, he's so proud of Rosemary and everything she does, and maybe he pinches himself that guy like him got a woman like this to marry him. And so he's angry, obviously, about the fire and everything it did, but there was something to it. So, there's something that makes him want to hang on to it. And then later in the episode, it's what Rosemary has when he sees her mourning. It's they've experienced the loss too. As much as they're grateful for not having lost their house, as they say, um, and but they've experienced the loss, and this is something that emotionally they have to deal with. And I think that's part of him dealing with it emotionally, that he knows you can't just throw everything away and forget it ever happened.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I feel like that's a human quality that you hang on to these little artifacts, these reminders, because they're in here.
Yeah.
You can't escape. You can't escape them. So I think I mean, that's at least what I would say that's about.
Lucas brings a bit of levity to the episode, doing the showman, putting on this for for the kids in the community. And we get to see Edie kind of stand back and watch this play out. What were you hoping to achieve in that moment, that nonverbal between the two of them?
Well, definitely, finding the romance in the tragedy. Where could it go? And oh, well, these kids are, lost their homes and they're now in a new place. And oh, look, they were laughing. Maybe we could put, in that this is a wonderful Hope Valley, um, I wouldn't say tradition, but that they like, they take, obviously they always take care of each other, but find joy and put on a show. So like even in and they Pascal, Rosemary and Elizabeth talk about this, how even at a night like this, maybe the worst night of these kids' lives, they could laugh. And so yeah, so then oh well, Lucas does magic. Maybe so he's entertaining the kids. He shows his humanity, bending down and entertaining these kids in the middle of all this. Because at this point there isn't much more he could do. And then Elizabeth and Rosemary having the idea to ask him to put on a show, which he's happy to do. He's still nervous about it, but he does it. And then um, I think it's a really sweet moment when Edie gets to see that. I don't know. It's this like oh my God, this guy. He's the governor. He's devilishly handsome, and look at him. I mean, so that it was absolutely intended to be what I think. What I hope you. It sounds like you got out of it, Stephanie.
Yeah. One thing that we love is when Elizabeth writes in her journal. And so we have this moment at the end of the episode. So many times we have it at the beginning. It was a pleasant surprise to see her write in her journal at the end of this episode and do some reflection on what's just happened in Hope Valley, but also in Benson Hills. And I just want to highlight something that she said when she talked about that central theme of that. I want to get this right here. So, that life won't return to what it was, but that something just as meaningful can emerge from loss. So, how central was this theme to not only shaping this episode, but the season ahead?
Yeah, I think that's pretty big. It's renewal. Um, like I guess I want to say like a cousin of redemption, not really redemption, but yeah, something springing anew. I mean, characters like suffering great losses, or but could find other pieces of themselves and discover new relationships. So there's always even I remember I mean, not to compare this in any way, but I remember after 9/11, like the next day, maybe even that day, you started hearing the stories of the incredible things I mean, obviously that fire, that first responders and people on the street. I mean, it's oh the tale of the tragedy, and I mean the tail like a dog wagging a tail, like the thing that comes, and also the story of it is often the good that comes after it. And so I think that that's a really important piece of it, and where the season's going.
So it would have been very easy for Elizabeth, carrying her suitcase. She carries her suitcase, she brings it back, but there's clearly a moment where she opens up the suitcase and starts to pull out things and even makes a comment earlier in the episode about taking the time to what is the most important things to hold on. Did you guys have some very, direct conversations about what is going to go in the suitcase?
We absolutely did. And we talked to Aaron about it too. We wanted the brain trust in on that. I mean, obviously all the writers, Allie with her deep knowledge, Liam, and the
Yeah.
others, and so yeah, we thought a lot about it and thought it would be nice as a little a treat at the end to see.
Okay.
We didn't get to see when she packed it, but to
Right.
see when she unpacked it.
Yeah.
So is that photograph of the four of them, Nathan,
Yeah.
um, and Elizabeth and Allie, and little Jack, and his baseball glove and anyway, and some other those other things. Yeah, yeah. So we did.
There was another photo underneath. I
Yes.
couldn't figure out what that photo was underneath.
Yeah, it's the one that hangs, and it was taken out of its frame and rolled. It was of Jack
Okay.
Thornton, and
Got it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'm now that you've done an episode, now that you've been involved in this season, just question, have you developed this connection to a particular character or characters that you have really kind of like liked to write for or kind of give input on?
Oh, that's tough because the job is to really invest in all the characters.
Yeah.
So so oof, that's
It's okay if you're like, I love them all.
yeah, it is, because there are moments like, now I have to be careful because I'm thinking about the whole season. But every character has their moment. And so I could honestly tell you that there are certain episodes where, a character has something happen and something delightful, springs to mind, or we've talked about it in the room. And so like, and you really want to try to give every character their moment to shine,
Yeah.
So yes, there are episodes where obviously we're always Elizabeth, and Nathan and Lee and Rosemary and Lucas, and we are Bill, they're the characters that you want to make sure you give as much great stuff as possible, over and over every episode. But some episodes they get to do something a little better, a little shinier, a little, and it's so it's more about the episode and the moment and the scene, and then get and the material,
Yeah.
than it is about one character in particular, I'd say.
You set us up at the end of the episode where Lee walks in and makes a pretty bold statement. What can you tease about what's to come with that?
It will be followed up on. We will. I mean, I don't think it's questions will be answered.
Okay.
We may tease, but we'll always um, give you a absolutely satisfying, I hope, answer.
Always do.
Um,
Looking back now that you've seen the episode, is there a part of the episode that you're really proud of and the way that it all played out or a moment?
it's so much of it is how it all holds together.
I agree.
I mean, look. I don't want to get too like, you know, shop about writing and not, but you know, there's scene work is incredibly important. You know, writing great, memorable scenes or satisfying scenes, giving the actors things to do. And by the way, I really wanted to step back and say it's always about what the actors do with it, what the director, what production. You know, the writing is a part of it, and then they elevate it.
Yeah.
And so I really want to be careful not to be. I don't want to feel like it's all the writing is a piece,
Yeah.
but this is a great team sport, making TV shows. And at the end of the day, it's the actors that bring it to life, that give it life, that the writers often, oh, I didn't even, wow, that's great. I didn't even think of that. So all credit where credit's due. But and the director for pulling it all together and working with everyone. And then everyone else in the production for making it look so good. Um, but um, but yeah, it's the journey of the characters. It's how the stories hold together. Of course, sure, there are moments. I mean, that moment I mentioned between Lee and Rosemary. Yeah, I'm a little bit proud of that. That moment of humanity. It's not a big thing, um, but yeah, and the scene with the big guy in the beans is a great scene. Elizabeth and Nathan have a bunch of them, but when he's back and tired in the office, and she brings him a sandwich, and just what everything going on between them, and he's too tired to sleep. I was delighted by. He's too happy to sleep.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
what
love that line.
I'm letting you in on something, you know what I mean? And I'm more delighted with it than anyone else is ever going to be, but since you're asking,
Yes.
um, and um, and yeah, but but it has to all hold together. And I feel like there's a flow to this episode. Much credit to the actors, certainly to Mike Roll and the editors. Gosh, I can't forget the editors. So I'd
This
say
was definitely an episode. Lori Loughlin was in Kansas City this year, and she highlighted that the Hardee's community is so strong because it's clear to us how much of a team effort this show is, and everybody that comes together and does their best work all the time. This was an episode that clearly highlighted that. So I get even why it's hard to pick out a favorite moment because it was just so like everybody coming together to produce this big thing. And it was very evident on this side of it. What a fantastic episode.
thank you so much, Stephanie. I really enjoyed talking about it. And I hope I don't know, I hope I gave you the Hardys something to think about or,
Oh, we
yeah.
always love the behind the scenes, the insights. It's the things that we geek out on. And it's like we get to see it on the screen, but then to see all of the, planning that goes into it behind the scenes is just an added layer that we love to know about. It keeps us going from Sunday to Sunday as well. So anyway, will
And,
you be writing? Yeah, go ahead.
oh, no, you go ahead.
Yeah. Will you be right? Have you written another episode that we're going to see later on this season?
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, a
Hopefully you'll
couple.
be able to come back and we can talk about that episode as well.
I'd be happy to. And just to sort of end by going back to something you asked earlier, I mean, just talking about all this with you, like, really fills me with gratitude for being part of this community. Because I'm new. I'm a new guy.
Yeah.
And again, like, Erin and everyone at Hallmark and MPCA and with the production, Vicky and Mike and Mike Roll, Mike Robinson, everyone, certainly, you feel that the whole cast, you feel that history, and it's a privilege that I'm incredibly grateful for to be part of it, and I feel very welcomed to it, and it was I hope I contributed something, this season that
Absolutely.
that helped that everybody enjoys.
Absolutely. Well, I want to remind everybody that if you didn't get an opportunity to see episode 2, you can actually watch that now on Hallmark Plus. So definitely go check it out. I'm excited to see what's ahead. My goodness, you guys have set up something really big for what's coming in Hope Valley. So we're excited. David, thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephanie. I did too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.